it's not a question of coordinates. It's not a question of anything because you become a conduit of information from the unconscious that is there constantly for you. Now, you can use things like thought incubation for your team or yourself, but those become immediate tools usable every night.
You have wondered what you would be able to do if you were the ultimate version of you, right? You would then have an easy time creating what you want, and yes, effortlessly enjoying life too. Now, you may know this already, the influence you have over your reality is far beyond what you've been told. Soon, you realize that your outer world is merely a mirror of your inner world, and we're here to connect the dots for you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to God Mode.
Welcome back to God Mode. Now, this episode, we're going to explore what remote viewing is in the context of the Upgrade Level 5 course. Because in Upgrade Level 5 course, we call it Omniscience. We will be teaching remote viewing with David Morehouse, and Upgrade will be providing accelerants that will allow you to learn remote viewing in ways that are radically different than how it was previously taught. And with David's endorsement, we can even say it's even better.
Oh, it's better. Yes, it's better.
Yes. Now, welcome back, everyone, because this episode is very important because we're going to talk about what it is. We're going to give you big picture. You know, there's going to be a lot of details in the course, but we're going to give you a lot of big picture. And then we're going to give you also how it's done, also big picture. And then we'll dive back into some weird topics. I get excited about that. All right. Welcome back, David. Thank you for being with us. Yes. Yes. Now, would you mind telling us a little bit what is involved in this Upgrade Omniscience course that explores all of the levels of remote viewing training that has ever been developed to teach people to be an expert remote viewer?
Sure. There are 7 levels that are going to be taught in Omniscience. And those levels are levels that typically would take a standard remote viewing student years to accomplish. Because we usually train on one course like coordinate remote viewing, which is the entry-level basic course. That's the transition course. That's the transformation course, right? That's from believing to knowing.
They learn the system.
Right.
They learn how to scientifically know that they're actually
empirically driven, scientifically developed, scientifically taught.
Changed my life, that course.
Yeah. It's trained, you know, with all of the science backing it up. Because as we said earlier, I want to make sure that the students all understand why they're able to do what I'm saying that you're going to be able to do. I want them to understand the quantum mechanical physics concepts as it relates to quantum mind. And they're going to get all that. There'll be so many things that they will kind of be reeling after the first day, as you know.
It's comprehensive.
Then we just get into the practicum. So you'll be taught each stage, then practicum. You'll be taught how to write your summaries. We'll get into a small group and share those. Then you'll be given video feedback, written feedback, Q&A with me and you, and then next stage. Then we go to stage 2. You get the lecture. So the didactic is given. After the didactic, Q&A, questions, concerns. You know, we fine tune it. People have questions. Practicum. And then a practicum again. And each thing goes through, it just keeps going and going. Then 3 and 4 and 5 and then 6. And And somewhere usually around stage 3, when you get the verbal and the visual data tied together, which happens in 2 and 3, that's usually when the transformation occurs. Doesn't matter. Sometimes it goes later, but sometimes it happens earlier. But after that, that's done. And then in comes the accelerants, where you are going to tie into training past in the other levels in what you're doing. And then you're going to tie it to the levels beyond 5, 6, and 7.
Mm-hmm.
So upgrade is a powerful tool, and now you're introducing an entirely different protocol, and we're going to keep tying the two of them together
Integrated.
as we press grow. Perfect word, integrated. Then they're going to, next class I take, which will be a month or so down the road, is extended remote viewing. Coordinate is done in an alpha brainwave state. They will be given the appropriate cool down MP3 so that they know how to do that, which is just a yogic breath meditation, relaxation, binaural beat, etc. Now there's a new one that's called, it's for extended remote viewing, and that takes them to a theta brainwave state. Extended remote viewing is devoid of all of the protocols that coordinate remote viewing has. It's more like flying. You mentioned that earlier. It still has a process that has to be followed, but that's much easier than the protocol of coordinate remote viewing. But
It requires that structure.
right. It doesn't have the 6 stages, obviously. There are still some things you have to do, but they're simple. But you learn seed questions and focus questions. Your biggest thing is the didactic and the practicum surrounding nonlinear mind mapping, right? Because you're not sitting up at a desk and doing detect, decode, and objectify. Now you're down with a blindfold on, and you're descending into theta, and you're immersed in the target for the duration of the target time. Then you come back out the other side, and now you go to those focus questions, and you start building nonlinear mind map around those. Then you have to learn how to chunk that together and take that nonlinear mind map data and create paragraphs and sentences out of it, which create your summary. So different summary format, different everything, different way in which you capture visuals, and a different way in which you capture the verbal concepts that support the target.
These 2 stages are game changers because I remember the way, and the beauty is the way that upgrade has been developed. It upgrades the operating system, cleans up the old junk that we may have in our minds from who knows when. We remove that, we upgrade the operating system. Now what you're teaching them is how to scientifically plug their mind into the internet. Now this is more real than the real internet, in my opinion, because we have access to it, but most people don't know how to access. And so this course in and of itself, even in the first 2, and just to explain the levels to the audience, right? In upgrade, we have 5 known levels of training, and 2 additional levels of training. There are private trainings that people can approach us and ask us about. And they're not secrets, but they're just, way advanced and individualized. And so the publicly available trainings are level 1 to 5, and we actually even have a level 0 that's free. Well, what we're doing is we're adding in level 5, and that level 5 is what we call omniscience. And the omniscience training is what David is bringing, and inside of level 5, I know there are a lot of levels, but bear with us. Inside of level 5, which we call omniscience, which is plugging you into the internet, there are 7 sub-levels or levels of training inside of level 5. So if you're wanting to zoom in and understand what's going on here, we're telling you inside of 5 levels of training and upgrade, which level, there's even a level 0, but 1 to 5 are standard paid trainings. In level 5, you're going to learn remote viewing, but in a way that is radically better than how it was. Because David is
dramatically improved, because we're just, because you and I are working hand in glove to enhance what each other does. And
I'm honored.
That's best. I'm honored as well. And I'm not just blowing smoke. I mean, I really mean that. And
same.
Again, these 7 levels, the only 2 that were ever developed by the intelligence community were CRV and ERV. Advanced techniques, thought incubation, individual thought incubation team, and mastery and explorer were all inventions that I created over the decades.
Beautiful.
And I did that because Coordinate remote viewing and extended remote viewing become basically the foundational courses that allow you to transform, understand that you are omnipotent, omniscient, right? Omnipresent and eternal. It gives you two different methodologies for accessing the unconscious, the holographic matrix field, and for capturing data and wisdom and imprint and understanding and contribution and interface, okay? But then beyond there are very advanced techniques like being able to do map sensing, which is if you see what we were doing in Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, you saw that
on History Channel.
On the History Channel. There have been 3 of those now using remote viewers that were trained by me, and I'm the program manager on the show. And we're providing data that the investigators are using to decide where the hot spots are and where they're going to shoot rockets, et cetera. So you'll do that, and you will also learn how to map sense the movement of something over time.
Wow.
You'll understand you'll be taught how to use pendulums in the real way, you know, as an amplification tool, right?
Yeah.
And then you will be given all different kinds of targets that you normally will not see in CRV or ERV, like beaconing targets, split beacon targets, right?
Oh, yeah, I know what you're
I don't want to say too much about those, but
yeah,
they're pretty fantastic for people to be able to see that. Thought incubation.
May I give them a teeny hint?
Yeah, go right ahead.
They can actually, so the training allows the people to see through their target, which is an individual's eyes, and hear through their ears and feel through their body that signal, right? And that they're opening up the signal line, which connects two people in space-time, which is fascinating. That in and of itself demonstrates that.
Yeah, and the beacon, of course, is a highly trained remote viewer, experienced remote viewer, who volunteers for the position to do that and gives the class permission to do this. So it's not invasive, and there are rules that you have to follow, things that you cannot say or do to the beacon, because after you're working with the beacon, we get the beacon on the phone, you will not know where they are in the world, what time zone they are in, male or female, until I get them on the phone. But you will have shared everything that you feel that beacon was doing, as you either saw through the beacon or over the beacon. You can do 2 different ways.
Wow.
Then you'll do a split beacon, which is 2 beacons, different parts of the world altogether. And what we're illustrating in the doing of this is omnipresence and omniscience, okay? So
how cool, right? To be able to scientifically show someone with evidence.
Yeah, because you're going to then, the 2 beacons will be on the phone after all of your data is in, and we've discussed it, and I've asked you to share it with the class.
Will they know it's going to be a split beacon, or?
They will be told it's a split beacon, but only in as much as I think that they're capable of dealing with that. If I think that they're not, I'll just tell them it's a beacon. And because sometimes if I have to gauge the class, sometimes if you explain the complexity of the exercise, that overrides their ability to comfortably just do the work. So it all depends. We'll sense, you and I both, where the class is and make those decisions. The pendulum work is important. It's learning it the right way and learning what it does. Remember, I was telling you earlier in one of the last segments that is one of the things that the Nazis were doing in the study of it, but it was not as an occult thing. They were actually using it to enhance their dowsing and doing other stuff. So you'll learn about that. It's not magic and it's not woo-woo. It is quite simply, it's just a weight on the end of a string, and all that does, it's an amplification tool. And
of the micro movements.
For the subcutaneous movements of the tissues of the body. That it's just the physiology of the body. When you are asking something or doing something, even though you have stabilized your hands and your body and are holding it perfectly still, you can cause it to do things just by thinking them. So when you're using it as a tool, using a target, Okay, there's the target that they use that allows you to derive certain answers. And so we will actually do things. I guess one of the practicums I can tell you is that we have extraordinarily complex tests. The tests will be of questions that are of multiple choice, and there is no possible way you will actually know the answer to the question. And so then in contemplating the question and using the pendulum on the target, it will determine for you whether it is A, B, C, or D. And that is you concentrating on the answer, on the question, and the answer.
I should have had this in university.
Yeah, no kidding. So, I mean, it's not 100% perfect. None of it is, right? But it's well beyond just simply guessing at it. Well beyond it. It's probably be in the 60 to 70% accuracy range. And you'll see, we'll calculate the...
That's passing grade.
Individual, yeah. We'll calculate the individual as well as the collective scores on all of that, which is always fun. Tracking something over time, that's pretty amazing to see that. And then you're going to do, again, in addition to the beacons, you're going to do some of the things that you probably heard me allude to in here, but I'm not going to tell you what they're going to be, but there'll be some really wild and wacky stuff that they will do that will be super exciting for them.
Targets, you're saying?
Yeah, targets.
Nice.
Thought incubation is, it's more of we call it quantum learning, because it really is addressing a technique to be used for problem solving and next generation brainstorming is really what it is. And it's important that you learn it for the individual and how you apply it to yourself in your own life. I know there are references to it in what you're doing in an upgrade. This is the very protocol that I learned from Dr. Julian Gresser decades ago when I was at the Office of Technology Assessment. Mel Riley and I went there for the U.S. Congress and participated in this training, which never made it out of the Office of Technology Assessment for the Congress. But it had such tremendous practical application that I actually wrote a thesis on it when I was in Command and General Staff College for a second master's degree. And I had permission from the Command and General Staff College commandant for me to run an experiment with 3 different staff groups. Staff groups were mixes of male and female, all majors or lieutenant colonels, and a whole mess of even foreign students mixed in, and mixtures of all branches, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, etc. And it proved to be absolutely so far beyond brainstorming and so far beyond just like a sensing session or an OE session. And you'll find that out when we get into that. Statistically, it is like 3x in terms of its ability to generate quality, usable data as solutions to problems at the individual level. And when you do thought incubation for teams, now you're learning how to use it so that you can take it back into your own companies and employ the same technique in your own companies, because again, problems that need to be solved, or you need to try to do some brainstorming, instead of doing the brainstorming where the extroverts always win and the introverts shut up and sit back, this harvests from both equally and allows all of that data to be looked at without devoid of judgment or evaluation or shutting it down because it didn't come from you or something else. So now you get a full plate of suggestions that comes from everyone on the team. And the volume of data and the quality of data is, again, 3x from what you could get any other place.
Wow. So after coordinate remote viewing and then extended remote viewing, which are the first 2 sub-levels inside of level 5, then the level 3...
Advanced techniques.
Advanced technique. Then
thought incubation individual, thought incubation teams.
And then the next one is...
Yeah, mastery.
Mastery.
Now, mastery is it's a difficult thing to explain, but it is now taking the skills that you have learned and kind of acting in a diplomatic role in determining how you're going to play a role in changing the world. Now, that's all I really want to say about that, other than to let you know that it is the point where I'm now asking you and facilitating for the students to play a role in deciding what we're going to do to transform the world, utilizing these gifts, upgrade gifts, and the gifts that they are born with as remote viewers, right? And explorers is going to be, vast majority of it is going to be exploration of technologies that are not available here. You can use your imagination and think what that might be. Doing targets that the unit did, but doing them now to the next level, because we're not going to go back to just the historical targets. We're going to go into open search outwards. We will do other targets that are open search inward that we have not talked about, but we don't need to talk about that right now because it will front load people. So open search inward, open search outward, seeking of advanced technologies, and it's pretty fascinating. And there'll be, well, it's more than that. It's very fascinating. But it's complex and it's advanced. And frankly, at this particular juncture, what used to be done when those courses were taught is now we are in the process of greatly reworking this and revamping it, because we're tailoring it to the upgrade customer or the upgrade
Students.
group, the students,
Yeah.
because let's face it, it's a different motivation. It's a different kind of person with a different kind of objective in life. So these things will be tailored and brought up to that for them. All of the courses have manuals. All of the courses have little trinkets and doodads that you get to, to remind you of what you were part of. All of the courses have graduation certificates. Those are kind of cool to have. You'll see. And it probably will not give you a pay raise at, wherever you work. but they're neat
Never
to have.
know.
And we're going to be doing this for a long time, you and I.
Yes. And I can't say enough how grateful I am for this, because what I'm seeing here is that people are born with superpowers that they don't know they have.
Right.
And you're teaching them, and I'm coming in, right? We're working together to not only wake them up from the deep sleep that they don't know they're in, but teaching them, hey, this is how you use your superpower that already belongs to you, but you just didn't know how to use it. I can't think of a more exciting course in the whole world.
I have never taken 7 courses like that and put them, within a year and taught them like that. I had reasons in the past, but I am very comfortable and confident that the upgrade students will be more than comfortable, because I know the accelerants that you and I have talked about will be tremendously helpful and will embed and anchor everything that needs to be there at the start of the course, at the conclusion of a course, and at the start of the next course, et cetera. So,
and the good news is people can sign up for this level 5, and then they can go through this course, and they don't have to do it in a year, right? They can do it over 2 years if that's okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. Because that'll give them time to be like, okay, first year I can't attend all of them, but I'd love to attend at least half of them. And then the following year, they'll compound on that and finish the rest, which is fantastic.
Yeah. It's a little over a month's worth of training if you tried to jam it all in one year. So that's a lot.
Yeah. Man. Well, I'm honored to have this opportunity to work with you on this. And I know that I have a few more weird questions since people are listening to us.
Go right ahead.
Yes. Yes. So you spoke of previously this 8-dimensional hyperspace or the matrix field. I would love for you to tell our audience a little bit more about why they need to get to know this 8-dimensional world and how that's going to benefit them, because they're going to take the training And as they go through the training, and by the way, if you want to find out more, go to our website, right? And book a time to speak with our team, and you can learn more about this special training. And especially if you're already students with us, you will learn that your training with upgrades so far will help you accelerate it even more and prepare you, because you will have cleaned up everything in your system, upgrade your operating system. Now you're ready for the internet, right? And if you haven't studied with us before, this is an opportunity to get to know us and learn why you also deserve to experience the superpower that you didn't even know that you have until now. So back to what we're talking about, the 8th dimensional hyperspace, or what you call it.
Yeah,
Tell us.
it's an extraordinarily complex topic, but if
We can go
and
big picture.
we can't really cover it, but
All good.
the objective of 8-dimensional hyperspace is just understanding the dimensionality that exists beyond just the 4 dimensions that we see and exist in.
Space and time, which is the 4th dimension, right?
Right. And when you're looking at 8-dimensional hyperspace, when you look at, there are some GIFs out there that you can look at. And when you see those GIFs in motion, they're trying to give you an understanding of it. What it means is you're standing wherever you are in the GIF, or wherever you are in 8-dimensional hyperspace, you are omnipresent. And that's what the GIF in motion is trying to illustrate for you, that you are in 8 separate dimensions all at the same time.
Beyond
and that is
space,
just
time,
referred
right?
to, yeah, it's another concept of that is a holographic matrix field. Okay? Meaning the waveform expression of everything is already there in any one piece of that field, because the dimensions are not over there or over here. They are constantly overlapping, right? And sharing space-time. And it's not necessary to try to think too hard about that. It's just necessary to understand the intent behind sharing it and behind talking about it, because we're trying to say to you that you're going to learn very precisely that remote viewing does not imply you going into an altered state of consciousness and projecting consciousness someplace. It's not a trip. You're not traveling, because you're already there. And when you realize that you're already there and it's already here, when you have an understanding of particle wave theory, entrainment, all of the other things that are going to go along with that, you're going to understand what we mean when we say you are omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, and eternal.
Which pushes boundaries on a lot of people, whether religious or not, right? Because, and yet that's what we want to do, because you're listening to God Mode, which is a name of a cheat code back in the 80s and 90s for video games, right? But what does God Mode really imply? It implies that you have a cheat code that allows you to gain access to something that previously was not thought possible. It allows you to win or win more. And what David right now is sharing with us is precisely that, because imagine knowing that space and time, all of space and time is right here, and we have access to it.
It means you have access to every thought, every notion, every object, every living sentient being, right on down to the waveform expression of every single cell organism, wherever it might be, anywhere within the universe or universes beyond this universe.
Wow.
So the waveform expressions of all things, everything is energy. Energy is everything. And therefore the waveform expression, everything can be expressed in waveform on some level. And waveform travels by every possible path.
And some people might be scared about knowing that they can actually be everywhere and everywhere all at once, right?
Well, we'll bring seat belts for those that are concerned. Seat belts and parachutes.
Yes. Wow. This is, I mean, I remember when I first heard about it, it was unsettling a bit and also extremely exciting. I tend to take a pretty adventurous approach when it comes to what the mind can do. But some people might be like, this is causing them to be thinking, well, what is reality then? If we can do what we're talking about here, what has been told to them, we may be shattering their reality. So how do we encourage people to, I mean, first off, I think that if people are too scared to find out they're actually far more powerful than they are and have this so-called superpower.
It actually ends up being people's greatest fears, right?
Interesting.
Because what do you do with that once you now have this new awareness? It is a concern for a lot of people. They are, they like the finite aspect of existence. They are not really comfortable with the idea of eternity or omnipotence and omniscience and omnipresence. But that's my job and yours with me to make sure that they understand that. It's nothing to be afraid of. My biggest fear for them is that there are so many misconceptions surrounding this term remote viewing that you have to be really square and solid in what you and I are presenting to them. They need to understand that this remote viewing, ever since the book Psychic Warrior was written,
which you wrote,
which I wrote, everybody and their brother and their dog has decided that they know what remote viewing is and that they do remote viewing. And you've heard me on Clubhouse, right, doing things like that where somebody will come on and go, I did mushrooms the other day and I remote viewed. No, you didn't. You did mushrooms. No, I remote viewed. Nope, you did mushrooms. And they get argumentative. Or I've had shaman come on. I'm a practicing shaman and I'm a remote viewer. Have you had remote viewing training? No, but I'm a practicing shaman and I'm a remote viewer. No, you're not. You're a practicing shaman. If you've not been formally trained by somebody who knows how to train you, you're a practicing shaman. You are not a remote viewer. How would you like it if I said, I'm a shaman because I'm a remote viewer? It's like, it drives me nuts because...
Did you ask that Sherman that question? Because that would have been funny.
Oh, yeah, I did. Right before we punched him off the app, bounced him out of the app. People get very argumentative about it because they think that they understand what it is. You hear guys that came out of the Soviet Union going, I was in a Russian remote viewing program. Well, Russians didn't have a remote viewing program. Soviet Union did. They had some other kind of program, but they didn't call it remote viewing. Nor did China call it a remote viewing program. That was, as we've said, that was a phrase that was coined by Ingo Swann and utilized. They didn't even call it that at SRI. They called it remote sensing at SRI. In fact, there is a March 1976 IEEE, which is the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers professional publication, like being published in the JAMA, right? And so in that, there is an article wherein they first published some of their early findings with this, which I thought, I was astounded, but I understood what was happening because when you read it and you understand what's being portrayed there, there's a considerable amount of misinformation, which would be published in a professional magazine like that, publication rather, because it causes the Soviet or whoever the other suspected enemies were, it causes them to have to investigate further. They have to spend money. They have to spend time, assets, personnel to try to figure out if what we're saying we're able to do is accurate, partially accurate, entirely accurate, and if it's not entirely accurate, what parts of it are not accurate. So now they have to spend time, money, and assets, et cetera, to figure it out. So there are some phrases in there and some data in there which is inaccurate, but otherwise, you're looking at the entire team at SRI International who wrote this article and published it in IEEE, March 76, called Remote Sensory Perception Channels is what it's called, not remote viewing. So interesting article to read. You could probably buy it online somewhere. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. I haven't talked about that in a long time. I kind of forgot that it was out there, but it's there. So there's a lot to learn. It is not easy, but it is absolutely doable, and it is my responsibility, and I know you'll be right there with me. It's my responsibility to take charge of every minute of the students' training time with me, and I am always available, and it is my job to make sure that they understand, that they comprehend everything that they're going to be asked to do, that it's backed up, that they get remediated if they don't understand something. So we will not let you fail.
The beautiful thing about this is that your training was already awesome. And when we're adding these accelerants, we're helping these students actually get deeper, faster, and maintain the skills or retain the skills and have higher performance. I think that not only will people be pleased, but also the people that are coming in are more prepared than anyone. I think that we're going to be really pleased with the outcome. I mean, think about it, right? People are learning how to unlock a superpower, essentially.
Yeah.
And I don't expect it to be easy, but I don't expect it to be not easy because of how we're going to be teaching it. And I think it's incredibly exciting if people have this opportunity to learn from you with us in the live trainings, which you haven't done in...
I have not done a live training in 6 years, probably.
Man, well, the one that you and I got to be in, right? Yeah, that was the last one.
Quite a while ago.
And then prior to that was like, what, decade or something, maybe?
Easily. I mean, I didn't do a live training. I mean,
it's been a while.
Patty and Jay would do it, and I would usually chime in by phone or on a Zoom call or something like that because I was always deployed somewhere with the company doing training. I could have been in the UK or Germany or
with your other company. So now we get to have you in person teaching these first waves of students, or for as long as you'd like to teach, which I think that people need to be encouraged, might be an understatement, to jump in now so that they can participate in your first rounds of live training where they get to interact with you and I in live setting in person, right? And some of the trainings will be taught virtually because they don't need to be in person, but there's a good chunk of the important stuff that you will get to experience it in person, which I think the lucky individuals who choose to jump in now will get to.
Absolutely. This is what I'm going to do. My other companies kind of run on autopilot, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But this one is where my heart and my mind is now.
And you've been looking for people that are ready
to do that. So
you've been looking for people that are ready.
Yes.
Yeah. And our people are ready.
Yeah, I feel that. Absolutely.
I'm so excited to have you with us. And I know that, we have so many weird questions I want to ask you. I'll ask you one final one, and then I think that we'll call it good for this specific episode. So the weird question is really not that weird. The weird question has to do with when someone thinks about remote viewing and they think about applying it into their lives. Let's say it's and you've been asked these questions. Obviously, so many people ask you silly questions, which is different than weird questions. And you've probably been asked thousands of different questions that are weird or silly. I want to ask you, how do you, let's say an investor or an entrepreneur comes to us, which we serve a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners, a lot of investors, and even people who are entertainers. They come to us, they're like, hey, how will remote viewing help me with my business? Now, if they don't already know the answer to this, I think they haven't been listening. But if they want a direct response from us, I'd love to hear your input, and I'd love to give my 2 cents about why would an investor or entrepreneur or like a celebrity or whoever that's elite performer, why would they want to jump in right now?
Well, again, it goes back to what we've been talking about. Coordinated remote viewing exists primarily, as far as I'm concerned, to do one thing. It is to cause transformation through empirical evidence. Once that happens and you understand that you don't any longer have to believe anything, you know something, You know that you are more than the physical. You know that you can interface with, learn, contribute to, take away from. And you know now that those conduits of perception are never going to be closed. They have always been there. Now they are open, and you cannot close them again. All you can do is choose to stop listening again. Extended remote viewing only expands those channels of perception. And once you are through those two things, now you're into the thought incubation, advanced techniques, and the other things. So it's not a matter of which class does what for you. As you continue to open and expand these conduits of perception, what starts to happen is you stand squarely with one foot in the physical and squarely with one foot in the non-physical. Now, you could, as I said before, you could go live on a mountain in a cave and eat pine, pitch, and locust for the next 40 years to try to get to that place, to be enlightened or to be balanced or to be connected in that way, because now it's not a question of coordinates. It's not a question of anything, because you become a conduit of information from the unconscious that is there constantly for you. Now, you can use things like thought incubation for your team or yourself, but those become immediate tools usable every night to explore and problem solve, to innovate, to decide. It goes back to the things like Buck Charlson, you know, the guy that founded the Life Sciences Foundation in the Twin Cities, right? Some 35 or 39 patents, many of them still active to this day. He's long gone, but, you know, he sat with me, and I knew that he didn't want me to teach him remote viewing. He just wanted to hear me talk about what I knew about it, because he wanted confirmation. He wanted confirmation, and what did he want confirmation of? His methodology for becoming a multimillionaire in doing what he did, because he was an engineer, but he never once sat at a drafting table and innovated. He innovated in his mind in an altered state of consciousness.
And he filed
in
patents.
A nap, or waking up from sleep, or going to sleep. Okay? Ely Callaway, another guy that I sat with and talked, the creator of the Callaway Golf and the Big Bertha.
Oh, wow.
He, too, did not want to learn remote viewing. He wanted validation and confirmation of his methodology for innovation and creation as the entrepreneur he is. Trained as an engineer, but was very clear to me. I never once sat at a drafting table and created something. Never once. It always came to me in a vision. It always came to me in a dream. It always came to me in a place where I neutraled my mind, and all of a sudden,
altered state,
neutral my mind, and all of a sudden, you know, the conduits of perception are open, and I innovate. Now, once I capture it, and he showed me his original scribbled sketch for the Big Bertha driver, to which I kind of had to spin it around. But once he had that, he didn't know what materials it was going to be made out of. He just came up with the idea of the increased size and other things. Then he took it to the engineering team, and then they created it. And then they worked with materials. And then they tested. And then they went back and fine-tuned and re-innovated and redesigned and went back again. But the original idea for it came in a dream, in a vision. You know, Edison used to do the same thing. He would go to sleep, take a nap rather, you know, in his laboratory, and he would hold two metal balls in his hands. When he fell asleep, his hands would relax, the balls would fall, hit the floor, wake him up, and he would do an inventory. Did something come to me? Do I have something? That's what we're talking about. These other things get you to this place where you don't have to wish
Grind.
or hope or wonder, or is this real, or is this something I'm making up or imagining? You don't have to right? You
In
don't
the
have to
modern day,
believe
they're
anymore.
grinding, or they call it hustling, spending extra time when their mind's actually not
Yeah.
even in the right place to get the ideas.
Exactly. Or just refusing to take the leap with what they just innovated because they're not really sure where it came from. It wasn't derived on purpose. It wasn't derived, utilizing their callings. It wasn't part of their intended mission statement for that altered state of consciousness, that meaning going to sleep or taking a nap. But when you start working like that and thinking like that and operating like that and knowing like that, geez, there just is you're never going to ask that question again. Like, what do I do with this in my life? You will never ask that question again because you'll know exactly what you're going to do with it in your life. And you're going to know exactly how you can use it, when you can use it, which is pretty much all the time. You'll be taking a nap on an airplane and you'll be innovating because that, will be your purpose. You will make that your intention. You will never waste a night's sleep, right? Without going into and moving through those brainwave states on purpose, with intention, to remember what you perceive out there, to seek the next great innovation for your business or for your life or for your relationship, right? And then the tools you give, codify those into your psyche, implant those things and keep them there. The things you innovate, the things you come up with, right?
And I'll give my 2 cents then. More than half the things that we test at Upgrade before it became part of the toolkits or protocols that we teach at Upgrade, more than half of them, before they became successful protocols that change people's lives, they came from these conduits that you share, that these ideas came, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this will work, and I see a vision of how they can help. And so it in and of itself is a testament to me how it made my life so much easier and our students' lives so much easier, and they are experiencing the result of the protocols that came through the conduits that you helped me open back in the day, right? So I think that this in and of itself will speak. And frankly, this wasn't even a weird question at all. This is the most important question.
Yeah.
And I have so many other weird questions I'll ask you in class, but, next time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course, brother.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's been wonderful.
Yeah, it really has. It's been a great 2 weeks.
Indeed. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yep. I'm
Yes.
going to be back as quick as I can.
Yes.
Brady owes me money, I think.
Oh.